Hi, welcome back to this Friday edition of Focal Point, AFR Talk, free for a Friday. Talk about anything you want. We're going to go to the phones here in just a few minutes, 888-589-8840. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about Peter King, representative from New York. Now, he got all in a dither over the fact that the Speaker Boehner would not provide a vote on the Sandy relief bill. By the way, they did pass it this morning, a $9.7 billion relief bill. And I got to tell you, the good news is that 67 Republicans voted against it. You know why they voted against it? We don't have the money. We don't have $9.7 billion laying around to give to anybody. Now, frankly, I believe it's unconstitutional. These relief bills are flatly unconstitutional. I've got a quote here, and I'm getting way off of my topic here. I'll get back to it in a second. But here's what James Madison said with all of these relief bills. Now, they're well-intentioned. Everybody understands you have compassion for them, but that's why we have private charities. That's why we have the Red Cross. That's why we have churches. That's why we have community charities that respond to these crises. That's why you have them. That's what they are there for. That's why if you are a homeowner, you get mortgage insurance. You know, if something happens and you have a tree fall on your house, that's not the government's responsibility to fix that or to anticipate that or to prepare for that. That's not the responsibility of taxpayers on the other side of the country to rebuild your house. It's your job to take preventive, protective measures and take out homeowners insurance. Now, down here in Mississippi, I pay twice for my homeowners insurance what I paid in in Idaho. You know why? We don't have tornadoes in Idaho. So we don't need protection against wind damage in Idaho. But in Mississippi, you do. It cost me double for my homeowners insurance what it cost me in Idaho. That's fine. That's one of the risks. If you choose to live in Mississippi, you're going to be in Tornado Alley. So that's a risk you have to anticipate. You don't want to be in Tornado Alley? Don't want to pay twice for your homeowners insurance? Then don't move to Mississippi. But if you do, it's not the responsibility of people on some other part of the world to provide in case something happens to your house. That's your job. Now, here's what James Madison said back in 1794. This guy's the father of the Constitution. He said this: I cannot undertake to lay my finger on that article of the Constitution which granted to Congress of expending on objects of benevolence the money of their constituents. You know why he couldn't lay his finger on that article of the Constitution that authorized Congress to take money from constituents and spend it on objects of benevolence? He couldn't lay his finger on it because it's not there. It does not exist. The founders didn't put it in there. They intentionally did not put it in there. And James Madison, father of the Constitution, said so. So those 67 Republicans today voted against this thing are heroes in my book and standing against enormous pressure in order to do the right thing. Now, here is Peter King. Back to Peter King. I'm getting back on topic here. This is Peter King, representative from New York. And again, this issue of assault weapons. Now, remember, assault weapon, a hunting rifle is an assault weapon. Under their, well, if they have a definition at all, it'd be a rifle. Now, these AR-15s is what everybody's been out of shape about. But the mechanism inside those rifles is the same as a hunting rifle. It's no different than hunting. It's just a hunting rifle is all it is. But they're calling them assault weapons to make them sound scary. Now, here is Representative Peter King talking about this whole issue of assault weapons. And remember, Democrats are out there trying to take our guns away from us. Reverend Al wants to take our knives away from us. Democrats are starting right now on a crusade to get to reinstitute a ban on high-capacity magazines. Here's Representative Peter King.
Joe, I fully agree with you. I voted for the assault weapon ban back in 1994. My father was a police officer. I really don't know why people need assault weapons. I'm not a hunter, but I understand people once. I understand people who live in rough neighborhoods, who have a small business and want to maintain a pistol to protect themselves, so long as they're properly vetted and licensed. But an assault weapon, listen, I'm sure 99% of people with assault weapons are good Americans, but to give that potential to a mass murderer who would be able to outarm the police, who, as we saw, could carry out the worst devastation. And I agree with you, as a Republican, there's so many issues in the world. Joe, you and I would agree on some, disagree on others. Yeah. But why the issue of assault weapons should even be on the table, why we want to identify with that when it's a vocal minority, but it is a minority who support these weapons.
So if you say, I don't really know why people need assault weapons. Well, you ban assault weapons, what's going to happen? The only people with assault weapons are going to be the bad guys. So you're not going to stop that guy at Sandy Hook. He stole the AR-15 that he used to shoot those students. He stole it. It wasn't his. He broke 41 laws that day. What good is another law going to do? If they want to get their hands on an assault weapon, they're going to get their hands on one. Only outlaws will have assault weapons. And then the rest of us will just be complete sitting ducks. The only thing that'll stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. The only thing that'll stop a bad guy with an assault weapon is a good guy with an assault weapon. And he says, I don't understand why people need assault weapons. This is abysmal constitutional ignorance. Because if you go to the Second Amendment, the founders will tell you why they believed the American people needed assault weapons. It was for self-defense against the merciless Indian savages, to use Thomas Jefferson's words, the founders' words from the Declaration of Independence. People needed to defend themselves against the, quote, merciless Indian savages that surrounded them, and they needed to be able to protect themselves from a tyrannical central government. Joseph Story, who was an associate justice of the Supreme Court, referred to the right to bear arms as the palladium, or the palladium of the liberties of a republic. That's what provides protection for a Republican form of government. Now, the founders in the Second Amendment, this is what I want to get to, and then we'll take phone calls, 888-589-8840. If you look at the wording of the Second Amendment, this is extremely important. The founders said that the right to keep and bear arms is critical for this reason, because it is, quote, necessary to the security of a free state. Let me repeat that. Necessary to the security of a free state. Now, nobody ever talks about that phrase, but it's right there in the Second Amendment. And it said the right to keep and bear arms is important if you want a state that is going to be secure. And state is capitalized. He's not talking about government in general. The founders were talking about each one of the 13 individual states. If you're going to have security and freedom as a state with a capital S, one of the 13 states, your people, the people in your state, must have the right to keep and bear arms to protect themselves as a state against an out-of-control central government. What's the government that they were concerned about? Wasn't England anymore. Wasn't England, because we had declared independence from England. They attacked us, invaded us. We defended our independence. We defeated them. Treaty of Paris, 1783, ended all of that. 1787, 1789. There is no threat from the Crown of England. So who were they protecting themselves from? They were protecting themselves from a tyrannical overreach from the federal government that they had just created in the Constitution. In other words, they understood that every government can seek to accumulate power to itself, and that the individual states, there might come a day when they would need to protect themselves from the tyrannical overreach of the central government that had been created by the Constitution. That's why it says the right to keep and bear arms is necessary to the security of a free state. Not a free United States of America, but a free state, each one of the individual 13 states. So Peter King needs to brush up on his constitutional history. In fact, I would suggest that every member of Congress and every citizen of the United States should get a little remedial education in the Constitution. We'll all be smarter, wiser, and most importantly, safer as a result. Well, let's go to the phones.